Hello, my angels. Don't mind the tears. This is a little bit of an impulsive video I'm making that I don't know, I was gonna say regret doing later, but you should never have regrets about anything in life, so here it goes. I don't have any. When you're someone who, when you're born into a family that has been blinded by illusions and lies their entire lives, and you're someone who breaks that and sees the truth, sees the toxic family dynamics, calls them out for it, sees the way in which everyone is kind of still operating based off of their own issues and traumas, and this need to fill voids rather than just face their feelings and face the things that they've been through and just face their egos and whatnot, then I suppose there comes a point where it's inevitable that you probably will lose all relationships. Even with the family members that you thought like it's impossible for there to not be a connection. It's impossible for that person to be cut off because you thought that, they loved you unconditionally. It's what family's all about. I think what is hitting me really hard about this is the fact that I've already grown up alone my whole life. I mean, I've just had to say goodbye to so many people to a point where I've now become a very distant person in absolutely every dynamic. Like, I used to be a hopeless romantic. Don't care about love anymore. Don't actually want to even find it anymore. Like, genuinely, I don't care. Completely decentered men out of my life, which is a good thing. But when it comes from like kind of a response to all the pain you've endured, then maybe not so much. I'm a very, very distant friend. I barely keep contact with anyone that I've moved away from. And if I do keep contact, it's like most of the time it's quite surface level because, again, I just don't want to get hurt, so I keep it surface level. I don't really go that deep, and I don't really consider anyone close because in a way I'm trying to protect myself. And now I've become the distant daughter, and when I was little, I was incredibly anxiously attached to sorry, off tangent. I think it's so heartbreaking when you think about how you were when you were little. Because when I was a little girl, all I ever wanted desperately was to be loved, and sorry, I keep dropping, was to be loved and to be accepted. And I always felt like I had to work hard for love. It never really came that easily. I always had to earn love. That's what it felt like from my parents. It was not as bad with my grandparents, but unfortunately I moved away from my grandparents at a very young age to America, where I was only stuck with my mom and my stepdad, and that's all I had. That's all I had. And my stepdad was completely emotionally unavailable and problematic in many aspects. And my mommy, she's just a naturally distant person. She only has one close friend in her life, and she doesn't open up to anyone about anything, so she's also a little quite distant. And the way that she showed her love to me was by spoiling me with gifts. And there were a few times where we'd break down and cry with each other and had that vulnerable kind of emotional vulnerability. Yeah, that's what it's called. But as the years went on, she kind of lost herself more and more and more. I think she just lost any amount of self-worth and self-love that she had left in herself. And once that happened, she stopped opening up to me. And yeah, that's kind of the start of it. But what happened this past year is that I had grown tremendously from the huge people pleaser that I used to be, like the insecure, shy, quiet kind of, don't want to take up too much space type of girl, to someone that finally understood that my worth does not lie in other people. It only comes from me. As long as I know where I'm from, where I'm taking my actions from. If my beliefs and my actions are coming from a pure place, from my heart, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what other people think of me, just for me being confident. If other people want to call that arrogance, if other people want to say, who does she think she is? It does not matter, because at the end of the day, my worth does not come from other people, it comes from myself. And so, because I stopped this people pleasing and I started to cut people off, obviously with grace, but like I cut people off if they weren't helping me grow, and I felt like they were hindering me from growth. I started to feel like that with my family as well. I started to call my mom out all the time on her negative, kind of toxic ways of thinking and belief systems, and she started to get annoyed by that. She started to get really annoyed by that. And once I came back for the summer to stay in my home country with my family, and all of them are here, it was just never the same anymore. Once you get to a point in your kind of self-development journey where you just transform from being a people pleaser, constantly giving people benefit of the doubt, constantly keeping quiet to keep the peace in the family, making yourself small. Once you transform that to finally being confident in your skin and knowing that actually the shit that I've experienced is bullshit, no one deserves to put up with this. I don't have to put up with this. I can't call these people out on it. I'm not gonna keep quiet just to keep the peace in the family, because I've done that long enough, and I'm tired of it, because it's diminishing your soul. Staying quiet, keeping yourself small just so you don't hurt other people's feelings, just so you don't cause other people to be angry. It's a life of misery. It's a life of quieting your soul, quieting your full purpose, your full highest self, and it's just not worth it. It's exhausting. And so I started to call them out, and they didn't like that. And I started to feel sad. I started to feel so sad around my family, because I just realized that this whole time, even all the times, growing up, where I would vent to them and, trust them with all of my feelings, and just whatever I was going through, I realized that the only reason they were all so supportive of me back then was because I was still keeping small. I was still playing it small. I was still playing it small. I was still very nice to everyone. I was letting all the stuff they would say slide most of the time, all the comments. Um, I would just they have this horrible tendency where if we get into a huge fight, like to a point where you can hear us screaming at each other houses down the road, and obviously that's quite traumatic. Like it's horrible arguments. Like a day or two would go by and they would just act like nothing happened, and then they would get mad at me and say that I am hurting myself because I'm holding on to it. Like, why are you holding on to it? Just let it go. You're only hurting yourself. They would use this weird manipulation tactic. I'm really big on treating everyone fairly and, like loving everyone, respecting everyone. And I mean that. But if you disrespect me, if you completely disrespect me, I can love you, but I don't have to like you and I don't have to keep contact with you. If you have disrespected me, I have every right to cut you off and to stay away from you. But obviously, when it's family, you have no choice but to continue living under the same environment and to continue keeping contact because everyone keeps contact with everyone. And so, whenever these huge fights will happen, and then a few days would go by, and obviously, I'm still not over it because it had long lasting effects, like literally messes with me. It messes with your self worth, with your self love. Like, these are traumatic things that happen, and obviously they're not gonna just be things you can get over like that. If you can just get over basically emotional abuse, then that's problematic. That means that you're numbing your feelings, you're not really dealing with your feelings. I mean, obviously any normal person who still has a heart, who still hasn't closed their heart off and are still experiencing feelings like a human typically will experience traumatic things, they can't just get over it like that. It stays in your body, it stays in your nervous system. You're still going to be upset about it. And my parents would just act like nothing happened, and then they would get upset that I'm still holding on to it, that I can't just let it go. And I wouldn't get any apologies. I get apologies from my mommy, not from my stepdad. But somehow I would end up being the bad guy for not forgiving fast enough, not being friendly, all buddy fast enough. And I think, because of this horrible habit, like I just couldn't stand that anymore. But the thing is, when I was still a people pleaser, I would end up letting those things get to me, and I would end up being like, okay, fine, like I'll forgive them, I'll forgive him, I'll forgive you, I'll get over it, fine. But it messes with you, you see, because these kind of things teach your brain as a child that if you're disrespected genuinely to a significant to a significant level, you should just keep forgiving that person over and over and over and over again, even though they're not actually making any changes. They just keep hurting you again and again. And then the same parents that cause you to think like that are the same parents who are surprised and who are begging you to leave the person you're with who keeps disrespecting you over and over again, and wondering, why do you keep staying? Why do you keep forgiving them? Where do you think that came from? But okay, fine. Moving on to this whole idea of once you become an adult, it's your responsibility to heal from the things that you learned growing up. I totally agree with that, and that's what I do every single day. But kind of getting back now to the main topic of this video is the idea that when you stop people pleasing and you stop letting these things slide, you stop associating with these horrible manipulation tactics and ignorance and just the illusions that your family lives under, with accepting things as normal that are not normal, then they start to resent you a lot. And you're seen as the troublemaker, you're seen as the problem, you're seen as the crazy one, you're seen as the difficult one. And I think, like, I just needed to make this video because I feel so incredibly hopeless right now because I don't have anyone. I don't have anyone to confide in about this. I don't have any siblings. I don't have any cousins. No uncles, no aunts. No friends that I can confide in about this. I have friends, but none of them are close like that. I'm not close with anyone to that extent to where I can just speak about these things. And also, it's just a big issue of it as well, is this, I do unfortunately struggle with the belief that if I was to confide in anyone about my problems, because of how many times in my life I've been met with people where when I try to confide in them about my pain, it's either been laughed at, dismissed, or just, actually it's just those two. I think the third one was gonna be like, tried to make it seem like I was too sensitive, but that's kind of just, again, being dismissive. So that's what I've been met with literally every time. Very, very few times have I been met with people who genuinely just want to hold me and just be with me, you know, feel with me. And so now I have this huge fear of vulnerability. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier on. I keep everyone at arm's length because I've learned that even when I give in, I usually am always met with people who don't know how to hold my grief, who don't know how to hold my pain. And it's not that it's their responsibility to, but I think I think that there's that saying, like, with community, sometimes you will have to do things for each other that may not be what you want to do. It may not be convenient for you, maybe a little bit inconvenient, may make you uncomfortable, you know, to be there for someone who's going through a lot, but that's the price of community. That's the price of true friendship. So, but yeah, I just don't want to feel, I don't want to be a burden to anyone. And so I don't just talk about these things, you know. So here I am making a video instead. And it was gonna be a little bit of a advice type of video, but I realize now that it's more just a rant because I have nowhere else to turn to. There's just been a really big situation that's happened in my family. This has been a long year-long type of secret that I've held within myself. And I held it in all these years because I had a feeling that, you know, oh, I might get dismissed for it. They might make it seem like it's not that big of a deal, even though I know it is a big deal. I know I'm not just over exaggerating it. It's just that these generations don't want to accept. These generations have normalized a lot of things that are actually genuinely not normal. It's not about our generation being too sensitive. It's about their generations not being sensitive enough. It's about their generations growing up under conditions in which a lot of really screwed up things were normalized. So they grow up thinking that a lot of these issues are okay when really they're not at all, and they're really traumatizing. And so then they blame us for seeing that, for seeing the truth in a lot of these normalized things, seeing how effed up they are, and then calling us too sensitive, too woke. And so I tried, I'm trying again and again to express myself, to express where I'm coming from, why I feel the way that I feel. And it's like, no matter what I do, I can scream, it doesn't matter. I can cry my eyes out and be vulnerable with them, it doesn't matter. I can be serious and like completely emotionless and not giving them a single reaction, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I try to speak to my family. They see me as a problem and they do not hear me, they do not see me. They think that what I'm saying is not the truth. They think that I'm over exaggerating things. They think that I'm the problem for seeing the truth that they refuse to see, for seeing past the illusions that exist within our family. And that breaks my heart more than I can describe. Because I don't know where to put it all. Of course, get a therapist. First of all, do you know how difficult it is to find a therapist that can deal with someone who's already extremely self-aware? For God's sake, I'm literally studying a psychology degree. Like, this has been my whole life. Psychoanalysis of myself, of other people. I'm very, very self-aware. That doesn't mean that it's impossible to find a therapist, just it's difficult to find one that knows how to deal with this kind of complex life I've had, complex feelings that I go through every day. Just like one day it's weird because it's like everything I come from at everything from sort of a detached point of view. Like a lot of things that I've went through in life, you would think would make me go crazy or like this horrible kind of person, or even just someone who's completely given up on life. There are so many points in my life where I almost gave up on life. I almost gave up on everything. But I kept going. And I used the things that happened to me to transform it into a reason to be even kinder and even lovelier and even sweeter, because I couldn't stand the cruelty and the coldness and the apathy and the ignorance that exists in this world. So I thought, well, it'd be stupid and it'd be easy to let that stuff just turn me into a villain. So no, actually, I'm gonna turn into the exact opposite. And so I did. Why am I speaking of this? It's related to the therapist thing. The point is, there were a lot of things I've went through that should have made me turn out a different way, but it didn't. And I would need to find a therapist it has to do with the complexity of me. That's why I would have to find a therapist that would know how to help me through all of that. And it's a lot to talk about. And also, like, I can't really sponsor myself for that right now. So, that's that. But hopefully, I can't go on like this any longer. I can't, so I need to find a therapist. I don't care what it takes, I have to get help because I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. You know, I used to suffer with severe depression from like 15 to 18, and I thought, okay, you know, that's in the past. This severe depression, I healed so much, and I had a whole spiritual awakening, and I got so far. I did so good. I've gotten so far. I've done so much entirely wonderful things in these past 2 years to heal myself, to be there for myself like never before. But today, from everything that's happened in my family and this refusal for them to see me and hear me and understand me and just blame me for everything, instead has caused thoughts of not being here anymore to come up again. And that's really heartbreaking, because it shouldn't get to a point of you having thoughts of unaliving yourself as the only way you might be able to get your family to finally understand the damage that they're doing, the emotional, mental damage that they're causing by turning against you, refusing to acknowledge you and the things you're saying, and making you feel crazy for simply not putting up with bullshit. It shouldn't get to that point where you feel like that's the only way. Maybe not even that might not even solve anything. It might not even change anything. But that's how extreme your thoughts get, of thinking that might be the only way that they will understand, that they might feel bad for not listening to me, for not seeing me, for refusing to acknowledge me. And I know it's a sick way of thinking, but that's just what happened. It's just those are just the thoughts that happen, and that hasn't happened in a very long time. Because I had a good actual relationship with my family, other than my stepdad, until I stopped people pleasing, until I stopped letting things slide, until I saw things for what they were, and I started to talk about it, and I started to express myself, and I started to clock them. I started to call them out. And now I feel like I'm being punished for that, which is really upsetting, because I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because it's like having all of this backlash from all of them makes me feel like, wait, what am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to leave it on all in the past and just act like nothing ever happened and just be goody two shoes to everyone and just completely let my feelings die? And with that, basically my soul, the truth that comes from my soul, all of it, just ignore it. But it's like, even when I did ignore all these things all these years, so much resentment built up because of that. I just had so much irritation inside of me that I couldn't, just kept all this just bottled up year after year after year, me holding it all in. And I don't like that feeling, because it eats at you from the inside. And so but then what am I to do? If I continue to stand my ground, I continue to stand in my truth, I continue to not allow this backlash, this negative reaction from all of them to make me change the way I'm approaching them, you know, by clocking them constantly. But in a, like, I'm not even doing it in a disrespectful way. I'm just saying, hey, look, no, that's not cool. Hey, you do realize that you're doing this because of this, or you do realize you're projecting, or blah blah blah. It feels like it just keeps getting worse with every day. Like I'm just getting more and more separated from everyone. And I feel more and more lonely as a result. And the lonelier I feel of not even having the tiny family, the only tiny family that I have, not even having them, and then let alone not having any friends, like no support system, no community at all. It's just, and I know it sounds like self-pity, but sometimes, you know, recently I've been thinking, how much of this term self-pitying, yes, can be someone that's over-exaggerating maybe their feelings to gain attention, and how much of it is just genuinely expressing this despair. How much of it is just expressing despair, that you feel completely alone? How much of it is expressing screaming for help? Because this isn't for attention. It's just me ranting like I've ranted all these years. Whether I rant to myself in my journal, whether I rant to myself through videos that I only keep to myself. I just don't know how else to deal with it. I want to deal with it in the healthiest way possible so that it doesn't stay with me and impact me longer than it needs to. So I just do this, talk to myself in one form or another. But the point is that, yeah, it just feels like it's getting worse every day. And, a lot of times people say, you know, oh, it's just so frustrating. Because, yes, I know that oftentimes when you're the black sheep of the family, it's like a catalyst. It's a catalyst for complete transformation. It's a catalyst for essentially your destiny, what you're supposed to do, what you're meant to do in this life, which is big. Because you're the one that breaks the generational curses, so obviously it's inevitable that you're gonna get quite far with all of that. Because you've decided, actually, I'm not doing none of that. I've had enough. I've seen what settling leads to. I've seen what people pleasing leads to. I've seen what these dynamics lead to. It's a life of misery and just living in your comfort zone and staying here your whole life. Never growing from that, which might be fine to a lot of people. That's why they live like that. But that's, since I was a little girl, that's just something I knew I didn't want for myself. And still know that I don't want for myself. So that's great and all, but my question is, when will this be over? When will this extreme heartbreak from essentially having to cut off your whole family and just completely build from scratch on your own, when will that stop shattering me? Because right now it feels like I'm drowning in that heartache. Right now it feels like I'm drowning in the grief of losing basically all the versions that I ever was. when I still had good relationships with all my family members, to now just having to grieve all of that. It's like all those years of growing up, and I was little and I was so close with everyone. I just have to say goodbye to all of it. Just because they can't stand that I call them out on things that they've normalized. Instead of wanting to see my perspective and maybe think to themselves, maybe my belief system does come from a little bit of a toxic place from what my parents taught me. And maybe it is worth in this life to try to outgrow those old limiting beliefs. Instead of kind of seeing that as an opportunity of growth, they see it as an attack and as reason to abandon me. Leave me alone to deal with all of this. So, like, how can I possibly begin to even trust people to let them completely into my heart? And I know that life is all about loss. I know you can never keep anyone forever. I know that life is about letting go over and over again, but it just often feels like the only way that I ever grow is by experiencing extreme heartache. It's just happened time and time again. Whether it's been through friends or through family or through love. It's like every time I give in or I become attached to anyone, life keeps teaching me over and over again that I have to be by myself. That I will just have to live with myself over and over again. That I have to accept my own company, and I have done that, so I don't really know why it has to be this extreme scenario right now where my whole family just is making me the villain. Not even the villain, it's a little harsh, I guess, but just a problem. When I've already made peace with myself, I've already made peace with my company ages ago. And now I'm hit with yet again one of the biggest heartaches of my life because I have to grieve people that I love who are still alive like they're dead. Because there's no coming back. Until they wake up and they're willing to see things from a different perspective and to want to grow, until they realize that, there is no going back. There is no fixing this. Because I see what I see. I know what I know now. And they've said what they've said, and they've chosen to see me as the problem. And if I don't want to keep people pleasing, if I want to stand firm in who I am now, which is someone who does not people please anymore and just sees the truth and calls out the truth, then that's impossible to maintain. That's just not gonna work then. And so, yeah, it seems to me like the only solution here is essentially cutting everyone off. So either they'll cut me off or I'll cut them off. Sooner or later, it's coming here real soon. Because every day it's getting worse and worse. No matter how I explain myself, no matter how calm I stay, no matter how vulnerable I am, or no matter how angry I am, they do not hear me. They do not want to hear me. just like you basically just have to grieve everything you've ever known. My family was my life. They're all I had, pretty much. Because it is only my mom, my grandma, my grandpa. My stepdad for a little bit until that relationship just was ruined. Through the constant arguing, through the constant complete opposite beliefs. And they were the only support I had. You know, I went to them every time I went through something really hard. I really, like I just couldn't hold it anymore. I went to them. And they always told me that the reason why I have a hard time finding people to connect with is because my heart is too big. I just can't believe they would say that, but then when I actually try to make the family wake up and grow, then that's an issue. But yeah, it's a different kind of pain for sure. I'm sorry for making this so long. But I'm not really sorry, because it's just for myself, essentially, to look back on in the future. But yeah. So, if you're going through the same thing, comment below. Maybe we can build a little community. Make us feel a little bit less alone. And incredibly sad. But, even though it makes me cry because of sadness, because it is sad that I have to do this, on the other hand, I am really glad that I've learned how to be my own parent. And every single time something, similar to this happens, or I just go through a lot of heartache and I feel very hopeless and I kind of just don't know where to turn. If you got you at the end of the day, if you got that little you in you, if you can picture just comforting the little you. Because most of the time when we have these, when we have trouble within our family, who's really hurt is just the little girl in you. Because it all started from there. It was the first times you started noticing that you were being dismissed, not heard. But you didn't understand that at the time. It wasn't until you were older that you actually started to understand the things that happened to you, the things that you thought were normal in your family that actually aren't normal. And that's why it's really important that you connect with your inner child, because there may come a point where you will not have a single person to turn to but yourself, and you better be ready to be there for yourself, because you're the only one that can save you at that point. So just make sure that you're compassionate to yourself, and you remember, in times where maybe you feel really desperate and maybe don't want to be here anymore, that if you were to go, you would be hurting that little girl in you too. And I'm sure that if you have any heart, you would never want to hurt a little child little boy or a little girl, you would never want to take them out of this world, right? So it's not any different with where you are now. But yeah, the moral of the story here is that I will be okay somehow. I know that this is making me even stronger. I know that this is helping me grow immensely. I know that oftentimes, I don't know, when you stop doing things that once benefited people hugely, if you dismissing yourself and ignoring your intuition was coming at a benefit for others, then obviously, if you stop doing that and it's no longer beneficial to others, they will start to really dislike you for that. They will really start to have a problem with you no longer lowering your worth, lowering your standards, lowering the way you see yourself and others, which makes it very beneficial for them. And yeah, that'll be a problem then. So, if you stop, how do I put this? If you simply finally acknowledging your worth, your own self-worth, if you simply stepping up for yourself and not letting people walk all over you, not letting people slide with harmful comments and beliefs, if that is causing people to turn against you, if that's causing people to hate you or really dislike you or call you a problem, then you know you're doing the right thing. Then you know that you're on the right path. You know that you're not messing anything up. You're not the problem. It's just that you're no longer beneficial for them. They're no longer benefiting from the fact that you're lowering yourself and that you're people pleasing. And they can't stand that. They can't stand when someone calls them out, because then it forces them to take accountability and acknowledge a lot of toxicity that they've been able to get away with for years with everyone. So, you should not feel ashamed for that. And I don't feel ashamed. I just feel sad. Because it's not like I want to lose them. Like I said, they were my life. They were all I had. I already have struggled with feeling alone nearly my whole life. So to not even have family, like I already cut off my real dad. I already cut off my whole dad's side of the family. This is all I had left. But I understand that everything sometimes happens in ways that we can't quite yet understand until later. Sometimes the things that are the absolute most heartbreaking at the time turn out to be the absolute biggest blessing for the future, for a much better path, for your highest path, for the path that you were always meant to be on. You will realize that if it wasn't for that happening, then you would have been on a different path. So, trying to see the positive in it, but right now, it feels really directionless. It's just like if if all of that goes away, like if I have no family, I have no support system in any way possible, then where am I supposed to go from there? Like, how am I supposed to build anything up for myself? Like, what am I gonna stay on the street then? Like, what am I gonna do if I have no support system? So that's a hard one for me to wrap my head around right now. But I'm sure it's part of a bigger picture. Anyways, I love you.